Marshall Harris from Comcast Sportsnet. As I think I saw some tweets last night. Was that you, Marshall, just prepping yourself for a late night tonight? You said, let me push myself and stay awake a little later because I know I'm going to have to be up on Tuesday night into Wednesday morning?
Man, it's something like that. Yeah, I got baseball at 10 o'clock tonight and then radio from 6 to 10 a.m. tomorrow morning. So it's just that life. I'm about that life. It's all good. I love baseball. I prefer good baseball, but hey, bad baseball is better than no baseball. At least that's what I tell myself.
Burning the midnight hour, midnight candle for sure, Marshall Harris is. So let's talk about the good then. Rhys Hoskins, he finally gets out of his long slump when he comes up by getting his first RBI and then squeaks out his first hit against the Mets on Sunday. Goes out to San Diego and, boy, break out the champagne. I mean, he got 2 pitches to hit and didn't miss them at all. Looks like he's finally relaxed.
This is a guy that, I think he is as advertised. They just had to find room for him, and it took him long enough. He should be ready to go. He didn't get off to the best of starts over the weekend, but, sometimes you just have a rough series. It's baseball. And last night he looked like a guy that you can understand what the excitement is from the front office level, especially from the fan level. I mean, this team doesn't have players who have authoritative power. And you look at Rhys Hoskins, he's more of an almost average guy in terms of hitting line drives. Those bombs that he hit last night, those were line drive home runs that happened to go 400 feet. And I think it's just a preview of what's to come the rest of the season and far beyond that.
How about the silent treatment they gave in the dugout? I always enjoy seeing that.
Oh, that was classic. That was textbook job done by the Phillies. And you know what? He embraced it so well, giving like the air high five. It was good to see them have fun in what was otherwise a pretty terrible game.
Marshall, Scott Grayson here. I just wanted to ask you about, my 2 boys, they look at me and they say, boy, this is tough to watch, Dad. And I say, yeah, well, they got some good young talent coming up. So I try to tell them, a couple years away probably from them being a contender in the playoffs with these young talent and this really, good, farm that they seem to have. What's your read on how long it'll be until this team is really, when you're not trying to clean up messes after every post-game show?
Well, first of all, I'm guessing that your kids did not stay up late enough to actually watch Rhys Hoskins hit those 2 home runs.
No,
last night, right?
No, that bedtime had come much before that.
And so they didn't actually get to see what you were talking about with the young guys. But when they get back on the East Coast, everything will be all good. They'll get to see that. Timetable-wise, I think it really depends on what direction the front office goes in this offseason. Will Freddie Galvis be back? Will Cesar Hernandez be back? Are they going to have answers? Is it going to be J.P. Crawford and Scott Kingery out of the gate? Which I'm starting to think it will be, but I'm not sure. What are they going to do about third base, where Michael Franco has looked absolutely putrid both at the plate and in the field? And are they going to make moves? I mean, we know Giancarlo Stanton just cleared waivers. I would love to see them go out and get Stanton. that would give your boys something to watch.
Hey,
it 43 home runs. Right?
Put some butts in the seats too, right?
Yeah, and I think that's it. And the guys that I was just talking about not knowing their futures here, in terms of them actually making the playoffs, that's important. But more important is they've got to get some consistent pitching. After you get past Nola and I guess Eichhoff, what do you really have to depend on? I don't think I don't think they're in a position yet where they can say we have a starting staff that can go out and every day keep us in games, even if they are scoring as well as they've been scoring in the second half of the season. You can't have what happened last night with Ricardo Pinto, and they had a 3-2 lead and they watched it just evaporate after a couple of innings, and I just. They're further away than I thought they would be at this point. Let me just put it that way. I'll be surprised if they're competitive before 2019. When I say competitive, that doesn't necessarily mean they make the playoffs. I'm just saying they'll be in position to make a push to the playoffs.
Hey, Marshall, is Josh. Sticking with the pitching staff, I think Aaron Nola has not gotten enough credit for how well he has pitched this year. He's got an ERA hanging just around 3. In his last 10 starts, he's had 10 consecutive quality starts. This guy is just going out and having a really good season. In your mind, looking ahead, do you think this is going to be the guy who's going to be the next Phillies playoff run version of what we had with Cole Hamels years ago?
I'm not sure anybody's going to be the 2008 version of Cole Hamels in the playoffs, but he can be a top of the rotation guy. I'm completely convinced of that. Now he's put the injuries behind him, and you've seen his velocity pick up, and his command has been back to what we heard it was going to be coming out of LSU. I think he is that guy, and I don't think any team really does it these days with just one guy in the mold of a Cole Hamels. You got to have a couple of aces. You see what the Dodgers went out and got to help out with Clayton Kershaw. You see the moves being made by the Cubs, even going back to last year. You got to have more than one ace to survive in the playoffs. The only thing that beats good hitting is good pitching, and all those playoff teams now have good hitting. Whether you look at teams like the Rockies, the Diamondbacks, the Dodgers, the Cubs and Brewers, I mean the Nationals, obviously, you got to have good pitching because that's the only thing that quiets down good hitting. I think Nola is that guy, and I think for some reason he's underrated. I guess because he's on the team that has the worst record in baseball. Steve Carlton-esque, if you'll remember, way back in the day.
Yep.
But I just think right now, Nola is something you can hang your hat on. Some of these younger players you can hang your hat on, and Odubel Herrera, even though there's pros and cons to that. And then Aaron Altair, if he can stay healthy, and Nick Williams, you like where he started. And let's see what Rhys Hoskins does over the last month and a half of the season.
I'm glad you brought up Odubel Herrera and Nick Williams because that's where I was going next. You look at a guy in Herrera. We had Greg Murphy on the show yesterday. He called Herrera a special player. And I look at a guy like Nick Williams, I don't think he's getting enough pub, Marshall. I mean, this guy has been hitting really well. He's just under 300 in 36 games. He's got 5 homers, 24 RBIs. Meanwhile, Herrera is hitting over 340 since the All-Star break. Do you think those are two outfield pieces for the future?
They are, unless you're going to trade for Giancarlo Stanton, then I would willfully give up on the just letting you know off the gate, like off the top. Because here's the problem. I think last night the Phillies had like 3 hits with the runners in scoring position, and 2 of the hits didn't score a run. Like you can't operate like that in 2017. You know, this isn't the 1980s. This isn't even the 1990s. You got to have guys who can hit the ball out of the park. Who on the Phillies can you point to right now and say, hey, that guy's going to hit 30 homers guaranteed? Nobody. Rhys Hoskins might be that guy, but obviously it's way too early to tell. Nick Williams may grow into that guy. Way too early to tell. I don't know that Odubel Herrera will ever be a 30 home run guy, you know? So you got to have guys who hit the ball out of the park. And Stanton does that. The 2 guys you just mentioned, they're good and well and all, but like Odubel Herrera's arm, I'm a big believer in your strengths have to be at the middle defensively. His arm isn't good enough to play center field for me. I'm sorry. You mentioned the throw that he made last night. Mm-hmm. Like, his arm isn't good enough to play center field. You need a superior arm in center field and in right field. And if Odubel Herrera is your left fielder, I think that makes a little bit more sense for the Phillies. But, I mean, Rhys Hoskins obviously will play first base going forward. They're going to move Tommy Joseph at some point. But you got to have, like, third base, first base, corner outfield. One of those spots has got to be a superpower guy. Even the guys they have coming up right now, J.P. Crawford and Scott Kingery up the middle, do you expect those guys to hit 30 home runs in the season? Maybe, but you're definitely not banking on it. You got to have power up and down your lineup.
Marshall Harris with us from Comcast Sportsnet talking about that Odubel Herrera throw that made me sit up in bed and utter an expletive so loud that my girlfriend said, "What's wrong?" And I said, "It's those Phillies again." Yes, 3 for 7 with runners in scoring position. 2 of the hits didn't score a run over the last 5 games. 4 of them losses. 40 men left on base. They had 11 hits last night, 10 men left on base. That's enough Phillies talk, Marshall. If we have you on and the Sixers schedule is out, I know Josh wants to ask you some Sixers stuff, so I'll turn the floor back over to Josh to let him fire away about the Sixers.
Yeah, Marshall. I mean, we see you on CSN covering the Sixers pre- and post game too, so we can't neglect that, right?
Yeah, no. I love basketball. We just dropped a podcast last night, Holding Court, that you can catch on iTunes, Stitcher Radio, whatever. Where we really went through and said, after the schedulings, what are the top 5 can't-miss games for the Sixers this coming season? How many wins do we think they will have? And how many games do we think Joel Embiid will play? 14 back-to-backs this year as opposed to 17 back-to-backs last year.
So, Marshall, looking at that schedule, we know about the big game against the Timberwolves. We know they're going to go to London for the game as well. You looking over that schedule, is there anything on the schedule that kind of when you saw it at first made you step back and say, all right, that's interesting?
I think if you just look at the front part of the schedule, I don't have it in front of me, but there's a stretch where they play the Warriors twice in 8 games. And when they're done with that stretch, they've played the Warriors twice, the Rockets twice. Obviously, they open up with the Wizards and the Celtics. The front part of that schedule is brutal. Like, just to find a way to come out of that, just being a 500 team would be impressive. And I'm not saying they're going to be 500, but I think to have them anywhere, even at 500, might be, a little aggressive in your expectations for these Sixers. I got them at 39 wins. It takes teams to gel. I don't think Joel Embiid's playing more than 55 games. And when he's not on the court, it's a different team. You're going to have 2 rookies on the court, Markelle Fultz and Ben Simmons, and rookies struggle defensively. And Embiid is that safety valve back there because of how just he's just a monster on offense and defense, but more so defensively than he is offensively. He is an absolute monster. So I think they're going to make the playoffs if Embiid is healthy enough to play the 55 games. It'll be interesting to see to me what his restrictions are on back-to-backs, minutes-wise, and also those same restrictions on Ben Simmons, who, of course, is coming off a foot injury. So I think there's some questions health-wise about the Sixers.
And just overlooking the overall picture, they're being on national TV for a slew of games this year, Marshall. Your expectations are what they are, but what do you think the league's expectations are for the Sixers, considering they're giving them so much national TV airtime?
And it's funny. I saw that they were on, I think, national TV, if you count the NBA TV games, 23 times.
Right.
The Lakers are on national TV 40 times. Crazy to me. 40 times. People talk about LeVar Ball and Lonzo Ball. Like, the dude is a genius. I'm sorry. He is a genius. But as for the Sixers, I think the league expects them to be an up-and-coming team and make a push for the playoffs. And they probably have – most people have them in. I think Vegas has them in the playoffs, if you look at the over-under that they've set. I think they should be making a push. You've got the Wizards, the Cavs, the Boston Celtics, the Raptors, the Milwaukee Bucks, and then there's a hodgepodge of teams, including like the Sixers, the Hornets, the Hawks, the Miami Heat, that are all going to be making a push for that bottom 2 playoff spots or bottom 3 playoff spot, depending on how it all shakes out. I expect the Sixers to be in the playoff conversation all year, unless there's injury problems. And I know it's a strong caveat, but let's be honest, guys. 3 seasons, 31 games for Joel Embiid. No one here would be shocked if he ends up playing, 40, 45 games.
He's Marshall Harris from Comcast Sportsnet. You can see him tonight on Phillies pre and post, and also catch him for Sixers pre and post when that season gets underway at MHarrisCSN. He is a great Twitter follow and a very active, Twitter user as well. If you tweet him, be prepared to get a response back because he does not sleep on those tweets, that's for sure. You got Ricky Bo tonight, Marshall. That's your cohort?
No, tonight it's actually Tommy Green.
Aha!
And so, we're going to try to stay up late and keep people entertained. Please stick around for the post-game show. We got post-game reaction and everything else, but, I think they didn't get done last night till 2:15 or something like that. So
I was definitely
real.
falling asleep, and then I woke up when Odubel made that throw, and then of course Ricky was annoyed when he and Amy were on. Yes, if we had Tommy Green on last week to talk about Darren Dalton, and we love Tommy Green, we love you, buddy, and we are so glad you were able to come on the show with us. And I know that in my head I'll be listening for that first time that Tommy says "safe to speak." That's my every time he throws out his Tommy Greenism, I just think, there's my boy T to Green up there giving the analysis.
T to Green gets it done, man. Let me tell you, he gets it done. That's a big fella. He's my bodyguard when I come to work and he's in the office.
So do you, Marshall Harris. We sure are thankful for your time. I really appreciate you coming on with us today, and we'll stay in touch as we get closer. Your talk about the NBA, by the way, was dead on. They play Golden State in Golden State on November 11th, and then they're home with Golden State a week later. So it's only a week that separates those games, and it's just a murderer's row of teams: Golden State, Clippers, Lakers, Sacramento, Golden State. Houston is in there early on October. That's mischief night. They open up with Boston on October 20th as their home opener. So a lot of fun to talk about. And we are your South Jersey affiliate for Sixers basketball on 97.3 ESPN. Plus, check out Marshall on Comcast Sportsnet, where all the Sixers games are and a lot of the Phillies games are, and all your Eagles coverage is as well. Thanks so much, Marshall. Take care, buddy.
All right, thanks for having me, guys. Enjoy.